you'll need to cut your fabric on the bias. You're going to be cutting the fabric strips the same width that we just measured around your welt cord. Cutting on the bias means to cut your fabric on a 45-degree angle. To do this, I like to use a cutting mat with a grid that also has your lines for 45 degrees already outlined for you. And I like to use an OmniGrid ruler, which is clear, and it helps me align things, especially if I have to do 45 degrees. So what I'll do is align my straight edge of my fabric along one of the straight lines on this grid. And then I'll take the OmniGrid and turn it so it's at a 45-degree angle at a diamond shape. And there's a horizontal line that runs across from corner to corner. You may not be able to see this in the video, but it's here. And it's perfect for aligning along one of the horizontal lines on the grid. And this creates for me a nice 45-degree angle on the fabric. Cutting your fabric on the bias allows you to create welt cording that will bend easily. This is very important if you're creating pillows, scalloped edges, anything that's going to have a nice curved edge. You really need to cut your fabric on the bias. This does take a little bit more work and a little bit more time because you're going to end up with short pieces at first that you're going to need to piece to get the length of the strip that you need. So my first step is to draw my first line at a 45-degree angle on the back of my fabric. Then I want to slide this down and find 2.5 inches, which is the width of the fabric that I need to cut, and align that with the line I just drew. So you may not be able to tell, but 1 inch, 2 inches, 2.5, and I've aligned it with the line that I just drew. And then I can draw another 45-degree line, creating 2.5 inch wide fabric strip. And I continue this process down my fabric until I think that I've got enough strips drawn out to cut out and then piece together. So I'm going to continue doing this down, drawing 45-degree lines all the way down my fabric, and then I'll cut those out and then we'll piece them, and then I'll show you how to create your welt cording. Then I'm going to cut out these fabric strips along the drawn lines using a pair of sharp fabric scissors. You can also use a rotary cutter, which would probably be faster and cleaner. I actually have a rotary cutter, but my blades are pretty dull and it's going to cause too many other problems. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my sharp scissors here. Here are my fabric strips cut out to 2.5 inches wide. Your measurement may be different based on the width of your welt cord. And now I'm going to show you how to piece these together so that you can have one long fabric strip for your project. To piece your bias strips, lay your strips right sides up with the raw edges facing each other looking like this. You don't want the two edges that look like this facing each other. You want it to look more like that. Then what I like to do, and this is my personal technique, is I fold under one side about 1/4 inch, and you can kind of just finger press this so it holds in place. Doesn't have to be exactly 1/4 inch, just needs to be an even press. Okay? Then I fold it back over and I lay this on top of the second strip, aligning the underside raw edge as best I can, but more importantly aligning the top edge and bottom edge. So I position this so that it looks like this. You'll have a little triangle hanging off here. You may even have a triangle hanging off on this side as well. Once you've got the top edge and bottom edge going in a straight line, just carefully lift this up. And you may see this. This means that you haven't cut your fabric at an exact 45-degree angle. I actually made a mistake, and this is not a big deal. I'm just going to trim off the excess here after I've sewn these two pieces together. But holding your finger on the folded edge here, lift this up, and then put your finger down here on this raw edge just to hold this little strip in place, and lay it flat for just a moment. It's going to look something like this for you as well. I'm going to take a couple pins and secure these two pieces together so when I take it to the sewing machine, I can sew along this folded crease right here. Now you may not be able to see the crease in the video, but I see it, and then when you're doing it for yourself, you'll see it as well. And you just need that little visual crease as your sewing guide to sew a straight line right here. And when you're done, you just trim off this excess yucky fabric, and then you'll fold it back over, and you'll have a piece by a strip. So I'm going to pin this in a couple places so it doesn't really turn on me. I'm going to sew it on my machine, and then I'll show you how all that looks. Okay, I've now stitched a straight stitch across these two pieces, and I'm going to take my scissors and cut off all this junk here. And then when I fold it over, you kind of can just press it with your fingers. You'll see that this edge here is nice and aligned and flows. It's actually a little off here. I didn't do a very great job, quite honestly, but once everything is sewn around the welt cord, you're not going to really see this. So I'm not going to make a big deal about it. I might have re-sewn it if it was something that was going to make a difference, but in this case, I don't think so. And you see this little triangle right here. We can go ahead and cut that off too. Like that. So it looks like that. Okay, so these two strips are pieced. If you have more, go ahead and piece them in the same way, and then we will wrap this around the welt.